Have you ever tried working on something in the Unity editor only to find yourself trying to access a piece of code and it's marked as internal, completely stopping you in your tracks? Or alternatively, have you tried to extend a part of the editor only to find out that you just don't have access to it whatsoever? Well, I have. I recently found myself in a position where I was working on a custom UI element. This is a quad that I wanted to be able to pull the edges in to make sort of triangle shapes because there's no support for that naturally. And I wanted to do it using stylings so that we could have different classes control different versions of that shape. Currently, as of Unity 6, the only way to get access to this stuff is by adding a UXML attribute to a public property on your class. And that's fine, but it means that in the UI builder, everything has to be set on the actual element in line rather than through the style sheet. The only way you can get access to those custom properties is to write it in the style sheet itself. So I can grab, for instance, the main color here and assign that in the style sheet. And we have a white box, right? So that's fine, I guess, but if you're used to working in the UI builder, it has its benefits. You can see what it's doing and you can make adjustments. It kind of sucks to have to switch back into the USS every time, and they're kind of weird about staying in sync. So wouldn't it be lovely if we could reveal the custom properties of any element that we define in the UI builder? I thought that would be quite a cool feature. I thought, okay, well, if I can get access to the UI builder window, I could use some code to figure out if the current UXML file has any of my custom C# classes in, check the type of that class for any of the attributes that define it as a custom style, and then read that off, put a field in the inspector, and hey presto. But wouldn't you guess, you can't get access to the UI builder window. However, after some digging around, I discovered something. You kind of can. As you can see here, if we look for any reference to the UI builder window or anything like that, it just doesn't show up through IntelliSense. We can look through the Unity editor UI elements namespace. We can look through the UI namespace, but there's nothing. There's no reference to it that we can get access to, which leads me to believe that it's probably some kind of internal assembly. So I wrote this script to look for any assembly that's currently loaded with the term builder or UI builder in, just to see if it exists. So if we go into the editor, hit tools, choose this find UI builder window. Oh, look at that. We have a ton of assemblies that have hit that, none of which are the ones we want. There's a lot of builder. But if we filter through it, we will find unity.ui.builder. So it's there. It's in the Unity editor.ui builder module. So it exists, but we just can't access it. If this was a package, we could use some of the techniques that I've shared in previous videos, but that's unfortunately not going to work this time around because it's part of a module that we just can't find anywhere in the editor. So credit has to go to Casey Hoffland over on the discussions Unity forum, where they point out that inside of the 2D package, there's some mysterious assembly definition that exists. So let's take a look at this. So I've gone into the package manager and installed the 2D package just so we can see. And if we have a look here, there's this assembly definition called InternalBridge def. And this has a name called Unity InternalAPIEngineBridge.001. And if I search internal bridge, we'll find that there's another reference to an API engine bridge. So not just editor bridge, which one of them is, but also engine bridge. And they have this weird numbering convention. And that's how packages are able to be removed from the Unity engine and made into packages, but still access internal features. So I figured if packages can use it, then surely so can we. So let's create a new assembly definition inside of our folder. We'll go to scripting and assembly definition, and we'll call this internal bridge. Yeah. So then in the name, we'll type unity.internalapiengineBridge.004 and then hit apply. I don't know if there's other packages. that are going to be using this. Seems like that's just the format. I'm sure it can be any number. I think if another package is already using the same name, it's going to create some kind of conflict. So we probably want to just make sure that whatever exists in your project, this is numbered above that. I'm sure it could be 100 if you wanted, but 004 seems safe to me. So now, if we want to get access to the builder window, let's start typing builder and see what happens. Look at that. We have access to unity.ui.builder. It shows up. We can see it. We've got access to some of the internal classes, all of the internal classes that we're allowed to have access to. I can see the builder window. I can see all of the sub windows. I can navigate into the definitions and actually take a look at what's going on inside of these classes. So this is where I got to work. I added a little hook into the editor window class for whenever the focus changes. And I checked if the active window was null or not. And if it wasn't, I put a message in the console to confirm that we've opened the builder window, which, as I'm sure you can see, when I switch to it and I change context, it knows that it's active. If I close this, it's no longer active. And if I open the builder window again, we get a message in the inspector. That's great. So from here, we can start injecting code into the builder window. If we take a look at the class by just holding control and clicking on the class name, we get a decompiled version of the script, and we can see that a lot of the code here is just visual elements. So with that in mind, if we look in the inspector, and we open the UI Toolkit debugger, we can find where things are and how to inject code into it. So if I choose the builder panel, I can see that where I would want to put my fields when this is selected is part of the inspector, and I would want it after this element so I can pick that element and find what it is. So it's a category persisted fold out inside of the builder category scroll view inside of the builder inspector. And really, it's just a case of digging around a lot inside of here to find where I want to put things and which classes I want to try and access. If we wanted to, for instance, just add a custom field to that inspector panel, we can do so by accessing the builder window, accessing the inspector component, and then adding our custom text field to that visual element. If we take a look in Unity, we now have a custom field, albeit not in the place we want it to be, but we have a custom field in the inspector panel inside of the UI builder, which we previously didn't have access to and we couldn't do. As I'm sure you can imagine, it's a pretty awesome thing to have access to. I think the only thing to keep in mind is that this is obviously internal classes, and each engine version might change some of these things, so it can't be reliably leaned upon. But most of you in production probably aren't changing Unity versions that frequently. So if it works for the currently Unity version you have installed, it's probably going to work throughout your project. And armed with this breadcrumb, I went ahead and started the work on trying to inject code into the editor that could look through my custom classes and provide different properties for them. The only problem is there are still some drawbacks to this method. For whatever reason, understandably, but annoyingly, you don't have full-fledged access to all of the internal classes. Some only give access to certain modules within each other, and at this point you end up hitting another roadblock. For instance, one of the things that's accessed a lot are these style rules and style properties, but unfortunately, they have this attribute on them, which locks them to certain modules only. And so there's no real easy way to get access to these internal classes. But the useful thing was knowing that they existed. And if you've watched my attributes and reflection video, you'll know that there are tons of ways to get around generic things you don't have access to. And it's a little messy and it's kind of gross, but this was my way around getting access to a lot of those things that I couldn't touch because of internal logic. So this whole thing is not going to be a tutorial on how to do that for this exact reason, because it will just make no sense. But I will try and share some of this code if you're interested over on Patreon. It'll be free for everybody. So click the link down in the description if you want to take a look at some of this stuff. But yeah, it's a little insane. So I was able to inject all of the custom styles on this class into the builder. I can edit those features on my elements as a style, and it works just like normal, where I can bake those styles into the style sheet for me. I can click on the selector and the styles will be represented accurately based on what it is in the style sheet. I'm sure you can see how extremely valuable this is to have, and it's all due to the API bridge and a lot of reflection, like a lot. Anyway, that's about it for this video. I figured this was an important thing to share because for some of you power users out there, I think this will be incredibly valuable to know how to do, and getting access to some of this internal code will be useful on longer term projects. So I wanted to share that with you, and I'm interested to know your thoughts. So leave your comments down below. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. And if you want to see more videos from me, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, as you'll be notified when new videos go live. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again very soon.